Great.
Okay, I do believe that we are all here. Welcome, everybody. It is Wednesday, March 3rd, 2021 at 5:01, and I am officially calling this special board meeting of the TDPUD to order. So, Shauna, could we get a roll call, please?
Yes, thank you. Director Aguera?
Here.
Director Bender?
Here.
Director Harris?
Here.
Vice President Laliotis?
Here.
President Finn?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. And since we are Zooming, we are going to defer the pledge this evening, which brings us to number 4. Do we have any changes to the agenda, Mr. Wright?
Yes, President Finn, staff would like to pull or remove the closed session item number 17.
Okay. Special item number 17 is pulled. Fine with me. Which brings us to item number 5. Thank you, Brian. Public comment. If this is time that is set aside for the public to address the board on any matter that is not on the agenda, testimony related to any agendized matter should be addressed at that time. So do we have any public comment this evening?
Is there,
I'm not seeing any.
we closed out 17. Did you say number 17?
Yes, Director Aguera, we pulled item 17, so we will not be having a closed session.
Okay.
Awesome. Which brings us to item number 6. If there's no public comment, director updates. This is time for directors to comment on any item within the purview of the district that is not on the agenda. Do we have any directors' comments this evening? Yes, Director Harris.
Hi, yes. I wanted to thank whoever was instrumental in getting the 5 months worth of meeting minutes posted to the website and the one document of public comment that was received by being dropped off at Joe Aguera's house in January. So thank you for bringing attention to the website. Sadly, last night as of 8 p.m., tonight's meeting was advertised in 5 different places on the website that it was supposed to start at 6 p.m. I emailed Brian about it, and it was corrected this morning. But I don't, the only place that it was posted on the website prior to the change this morning was on the actual PDF agenda. And I just want to make sure with Steve that it's still okay, that this is still a public meeting and that it was properly noticed.
Thank you, Director Harris. Yes, I think we could proceed. That was the time on the agenda was correct. The agenda was distributed. I do appreciate that we have an obligation to post the agenda on the website, and it should be correct. However, I believe that we can proceed tonight.
Okay. Thank you. And then the other thing, I actually had a question for the board members, and I had asked it in a previous meeting regarding the minutes. I understand that the policy is to record action minutes, which is what it kind of changed to. But past practices has been that it's been the expanded minutes where, it gives bullet points for like what the GM is saying or what, a little bit more information in the actual minutes. And I'm curious why it did change. I didn't really get a straight answer that I remember. So was that a choice of the board? Was that a choice of management? And what is the board like? I mean, I personally like the expanded minutes.
I will be happy to field that question because I was part of that discussion. We changed it because I also like the slightly more informative minutes. We went back to the simplified version because there were a lot of comments and corrections to the minutes as they were being done with the expanded version, and changes to go back and to change, because when we speak, and then it gets recorded. And when a director says, hey, I didn't feel like my words were recorded correctly, or the feeling behind them was conveyed properly during the course of the minutes. So I decided to pull back on that for a while until we got our website functioning and we could put we were overcoming our procedural difficulties with Zoom and public comment and being able to present all of those items to the public on the website efficiently and effectively. So I will reopen that discussion because I do think it adds a little bit of color to the straight up minutes. I did go back this week and dig around on the website and pull up old minutes and recent minutes. And, you know, it does add, it doesn't, you know, really change. So, you know, I will reopen that with staff and revisit it. And this is where we are at the moment.
Okay.
This is not a new thing or an old thing. We go through cycles. We've seen, you know, get more, when it becomes too onerous a duty to take the minutes, then we pull back and streamline it a little bit. So, and I suspect over time it will creep back to more comprehensive, or not even comprehensive, that's the wrong word, but more colorful.
Okay.
So that was me. That was me in discussion with staff. It was not.
Thank you for that clarification. I do appreciate it. The next question I have is, I understand that the minutes are kind of the legal representation of what happened at the meeting. And this is a question for Steve, is the video also a kind of a legal it's not a document, but legal documentation of the meeting?
So Director Harris, the Brown Act provides that when public meetings subject to the Brown Act are recorded, that we're required to maintain them, keep them for at least 30 days. Okay. And we can have a policy that would allow for their destruction beyond the 30 days. And I believe that we address this in our document retention policy. I don't recall exactly the length of time, whether or not I think there's no law that I'm aware of that would state that a video recording is a, quote, record of the meeting, but it certainly is. I mean, to the extent that the district has or maintains a copy that it could authenticate as being original and not having been tampered with or whatnot, then I think one could refer to it and consider it to be such, an accurate representation of the meeting. However, just like any document or other record, it is subject to editing and tampering if it's outside the chain of custody and control of the district. So to the extent the district has and maintains the videos, I think we would consider them to be an official record of the meeting. To the extent that they're out there in the public domain and have not been provided by the district, in other words, they're recorded by someone else, I would be cautious in accepting that kind of a document or record as representative or representation of what occurred at the meeting. I know that was a rather long answer. I hope I answered your question. Please let me know if I did not.
There was definitely a lot of good information in there. And thank you very much for that.
Sure.
Then kind of my next, just clarification to make sure I got it right, is that since we've gone to the action minutes and the videos are being used as kind of the keeper of the information, after 30 days, those videos could go away?
As I said, they are our document retention schedules do include the videos. I just don't know what the retention period is. I believe it is longer than 30 days, but at this moment, I don't know.
Does Brian or the district clerk know that information?
I don't have that offhand right now, but I could look that up and report back to the board.
That would be great. Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, do we have comments from any other directors? And you can unmute or wave your hand. I don't see. Okay, in which case I will end with mine. I do have a comment this evening. Oh, yes, that's okay.
I was just going to tell you, President Finn, I understand that we've received an anonymous public comment. May have come in late, but I don't know if you want to go, at the appropriate time. I thought you were done with this item. My bad.
Is this comment related to something on the agenda, or is it a comment that we should have read under item number 5?
I think under item number 5, I think it may have just come in late, though.
That is correct.
Well, can I see it anyway? Is there a way for me to see it? Is it under Q&A? No.
No,
I haven't seen it.
I'll forward it to your email.
Okay. Okay. I will read this comment. Can the board provide some clarification on statements made during the February 22nd board meeting? Director Bender expressed his desire for transparency and his concern for ratepayer dollars when discussing a $70,000 severance agreement. However, members of the board, including Director Bender, were silent when members of PUD staff were given $50,000 and $30,000 raises without public knowledge or review. Can this board and Director Bender provide clarity on how and when they seek to be transparent and care about ratepayer dollars? Thank you. The Truckee-Donner Public Utility District. So my just very simple answer is that we always care about ratepayer dollars, and we always pay attention. That's as far as I was going to go. Council Gross.
I was just going to say it's public comment, and it doesn't, you can briefly respond as you did, but it shouldn't result in a discussion.
And that's
Thank you.
My pleasure. And back to rounding out director's comments this evening. And my comment this evening is in response to Director Harris's comments from last week. I just want to make sure that everyone is aware of the dialogue as it stands at this moment. First, I absolutely heard and acknowledged Director Harris's request. Clearly, I did not accede to it at this time, and here is why. Because secondly, I consulted with Council Gross, and he felt strongly, and I agreed, that he had a professional, moral, and ethical obligation to inform Director Harris that her participation in a board discussion or decision about amending her contract with the district, which has a financial component, could well create a conflict of interest for her. You may recall from our recent ethics training that conflict of interest transgressions on the part of an elected official can be considered criminal. The penalties can be draconian, and I have absolutely no desire to see Director Harris incur criminal liability while we try to work through this situation. Therefore, it is our suggestion that she request formal advice from the FPPC, which is the Fair Political Practices Commission, before embarking on such a course. If she decides to seek advice from the FPPC, which is a free service that Council Gross will help her to navigate, then we shall, of course, wait for their guidance before proceeding. If she declines to seek that advice, then we shall determine how to best proceed with her request. In the meantime, I would like to offer my support and encouragement to all of us as we try to further the mission of our district, which is that of supplying reliable and high-quality utility services to our community, while striving to embody our values of integrity, safety, communication, accountability, timeliness, and work-life balance. I would also like us to recommit ourselves to abiding to the best of our abilities with the letter and the spirit of our district code. And a big thank you and most respect to our staff for their continued patience as we work to more perfectly understand and appropriately enact our duties as a board. So thank you. And I do have a quick pivot, different subject, but fast, sort of echoing Director Harris's comments from this evening. I was poking around on our website because I needed to check some of the answers I gave to some constituents. And I have to say, it was awesome. I found what I was looking for quickly. It was agendas and minutes. I pulled up watched videos of previous board meetings, including the very first Zoom one, and it was just very easy to use. It was lovely. It flowed. The improvements are great. It looks good. It feels good. COVID relief was on the front page. So thank you very much, staff, for addressing those discussions that we had, way back in January. So thank you. And that is my director comment for the evening, which...
Hey, Krista.
Yes.
Krista, it's Director Bender. Shauna, could you forward that to me? Just from the last 6 months plus, there's just people have used public comment, etc., as a soapbox for mis and disinformation, and that's purposefully talking and spreading information that's not correct. And before I respond at another meeting, if you could just provide that to me so I can read that. We've worked really hard in this district to be transparent, and using director update or just, public comment as a soapbox and stuff for misinformation, possibly disinformation. I'm just leaving it open. I just want to be able to respond to that properly at a later time. And so I just wanted to say my 2 cents there. So not leaving that off for public comment regarding mis or potentially dis, which is purposefully spreading and talking about incorrect, false information. So I just want to make sure that we address that, or I can look into that myself later, because since I was specifically listed in that public comment. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Director Bender. Okay, let's move on to item number 7, our general manager's update. Interim General Manager Wright, what do you have for us this evening?
Yeah, thank you, President Finn. I have just a quick update. It's more of a follow-up. The community experienced a power outage last Thursday that lasted, depending on where you were in the basin, from an hour and a half to 2 hours. Just wanted to follow up that that was in fact a transmission failure. The district is a transmission-dependent electric utility provider, as is some of our neighboring agencies. So the outage was a transmission failure during some switching on the NV Energy side. And so the outage extended from the North Lake Tahoe up to the Portola region, from what I understand. And what it did reveal is some additional work we need to do in terms of the district's communication and public agencies out there. So it's kind of timely. Things always happen in timely fashion. We are embarking on an updated emergency response plan, risk assessment. That's kind of dictated out of regulatory requirements from the state and the federal. On the water side, the American Water Infrastructure Act requires some updated emergency response planning. So we're going to work closely with some of our other sister agencies, town PUD, fire, and then the community at large. So you may have experienced on your own, but we did get report back that communication in general, cell phone, internet, landlines, had some susceptibility to that wider spread outage. So we're looking forward to including this in our larger emergency response plan and improve the process as we move along. So look for that in future workshops and discussions. Also wanted to just remind the community that we do have a strategic planning meeting scheduled for March 31st later this month. That does begin at 4:00. So look forward to continuing those discussions. Very excited to report out that from the strategic planning process, a lot of discussions on the initiatives are brewing through the community. So we're beginning to get, community engagement on a couple of these initiatives, looking for action and how they different interests participate. So things are moving before the plan's even fully developed. So that's great news, and we're looking forward to further discussions. That's all I have.
Thank you so much for those excellent updates, keeping us in the loop. Which brings us to item number 8, our special business, which is my pleasure to help present tonight our special business regarding the general manager's succession and transition. The ad hoc committee has had the opportunity to meet twice, and tonight we're going to bring to the board our recommended skill sets to discuss and approve. Pam Hobday is here this evening to help give us the historical perspective, and then I will give a brief PowerPoint, and the ad hoc committee and I are going to bring this home with recommendations to you, the board. So I'm going to hand it over to Pam Hobday right now.
Thank you, President Finn. Can everyone see this okay? Okay, great. I wanted, when President Finn and Director Bender and Joe and Mike, when we all met, it was important for us to review all of the hard and diligent work the ad hoc committee did in 2019. And I wanted to share with everyone tonight, this was the PowerPoint that we presented to the board on October 2nd, 2019, on the exact same topic, recommended skill sets. Just to begin, our first ad hoc committee meeting in 2019 was May 27th. And the ad hoc committee, to the date, and this is the exact slide that was presented in 2019. So at this time, the ad hoc committee had 11 meetings equaling 22 total hours working together. There were an additional about 15 hours where each ad hoc committee member researched articles, read books, discussed them, with a lot of pre-meeting preparation in really defining not only the skill sets, hard skill sets, cultural skill sets, but their definitions. And we decided that it would be very important to prioritize these skill sets once the ad hoc committee had come up with their recommendations. We had 3 different interactions. On August 27th, we did the same process that we did with the employees and the community, which lasted about 2 hours with the executive team, in having them prioritize what would be the major skill sets that they would like to see be prioritized or weighted during the interview process more than the other skill sets. We then, on September 17th, met with the employees. We did the very same process, so it was consistent. And on September 18th, we invited the community in to do exactly the same. This was the data that we presented that night. Of those 3 entities, the ELT is in blue, district employees is in orange, and public or community is indicated in green. And the recommendations from the ad hoc committee were that there are 4 hard skill sets that all groups recommended. And those were political, strategic planning and organization, strong decision-making, and visionary innovative leadership. The ad hoc committee, after looking at this data, also felt that the 5th hard skill set should be communication, and that both district employees and the public weighted that next highest. The committee also talked about, the ad hoc committee talked about how important it was to add descriptors that were pattern perception, lateral thinking, problem solving, and empathy. And the ad hoc committee had talked a lot about not only empathy, but radical empathy, and the differences in the 3 forms of empathy. And so those concepts were added to the definitions. The cultural skill set recommendations in 2019, based on the executive team, district employees, and the public and communities' priorities, were competence, integrity, interpersonal skills. And the discussion that the ad hoc committee had was very pertinent because we had just established values for the organization. And the ad hoc committee felt it was very important to include values in the cultural skill sets. And so that was recommended by the ad hoc committee. And because both the executive leadership team and employees prioritize experience, the ad hoc committee recommended adding experience as well. So the recommended prioritized hard skill sets, 5 out of 11 were the ones you see: visionary, innovative leadership, strong decision-making, strategic planning, organization skills, political skills, and communication skills. And just a reminder that these were the ones, the skill sets with questions under them that would be more heavily weighted than the other hard skill sets. So the way that looked for the board to give a nod of approval, here on the left were the prioritized hard skill sets, and on the right were the remainder of the hard skill sets. And questions were asked from all of these skill sets. For the cultural skill sets, the 6 were interpersonal, integrity, competence, values, experience, and initiative. And again, these would be more heavily weighted, but the remainder of the skill sets, there would still be questions that would be asked of the general manager candidates. And the ad hoc committee, the current ad hoc committee, which is President Finn, Director Bender, Joe Horvath, and Michael Salmon, felt that it was important for us just to have a moment in time to go back and remember all the work, all the time, all the discussions that the ad hoc committee spent in not only identification of these skill sets, but the priorities that were set by the ELT, employees, and the community. Any comments, President Finn? Or I will bring your PowerPoint up.
Well, I was, just before we shift focus to the future, while we're still here looking at last year, I was hoping that Director Laliotis might share with us, since he was on that original ad hoc committee and I learned so much from him during that process, if he could share with us some of his reflections on that process and how we worked together.
Sure. Thanks, Krista. Thanks for the recap, Pam. I appreciate it. Brings back a lot of good memories. But I you know, what it just triggered in my mind, and I appreciate you putting together that, Pam, is that how inclusive that this process was. You know, we felt so strongly about all of these priorities and skill sets that we didn't dismiss any of them. You know, we found a way to prioritize them, but also figure out a way to include the other things that that didn't rise to the top. And so it just reminded me how open and how open we were to everyone's opinion, and in this whole process, and how the length we went to try and include everyone's opinion in the process. So just really proud of that, and thank you for that reminder. You know, one of the things that sticks out for me, and I expressed this during the ad hoc committee, you know, quite a bit, was sort of how this process really kind of came around to enveloping an idea about culture in the district, and how all of these skill sets and priorities and ideas come together to build a culture in a workplace that, you know, leads to, you know, success of the organization, and, you know, brings people together to feel good about coming to work every day. And so I think what reminded me of that was just how strongly we felt about everyone's opinions and ideas, and went through the sort of the long process of trying to figure out how to be as inclusive as possible for everyone's ideas, even though they may have not been in the top 5 or 6. And I think that's really important, and really goes back to, you know, the culture that, you know, we wanted everyone's opinion to add color to this process. And it really did. And so thank you for reminding me, Pam, of all that. Seems like it was so long ago, even though it really wasn't, but just my memory isn't as good as it used to be. So, but overall, you know, we spent a tremendous amount of time learning about leadership and skills and ideas and concepts that set the foundation for doing all of this, setting all these priorities, and putting into this process where we included the public, the employees, and you know, it really tied everything together. So we're still really proud of the process, and I think we have a great foundation that we've built, and I think it stands strong today, and will continue to serve us well.
Thanks for those comments, Tony.
Thank you. I was going to say the same thing. Thank you, Tony.
President Finn, would you like me to bring up the next PowerPoint?
Please, I think that would be lovely. Okay. So here we are. We just had a lovely overview of how we got to this place. A reminder of all of the input that we took from the community and from the staff at the district. And these are the information that we had from 2020, the prioritized, the community, the executive leadership team, and the staff prioritized from 2020. And this is, on the right-hand side, our recommendations from that list that we are moving forward with. Visionary, innovative leadership skills. We added some language from innovation and creativity skill sets that we folded it in to visionary and innovative leadership skills, strong decision-making skills, strategic planning and organization skills, team building experience and relationship skills, which was a change from political skills. These are, we sort of pared down our, the recommendations that we're carrying forward. We met, we discussed them all, we all did our gap analysis, and this is what we are moving forward with. So we changed the title of political skills, but we basically kept the definition and added trust and collaboration, as well as language from team building experience with skills. So team building is what we elevated and enfolded political skills into. If we can go to the next slide. How many slides do I have? And here are our 6 cultural skill sets. Again, pretty similar. We interpersonal skills, integrity, competence, values, adaptability, and stability are our current recommended ones. We removed experience and innovation from the prioritized list of 2020 and replaced it with adaptability and stability after we had some discussions on these. And I wouldn't mind if Joe or Mike or Director Bender would like to sort of talk about what their impressions of how we got to these ones to recommend. I'd be happy to have your input to share. And I can't see everybody. Should I?
Well, I just, it was a good meeting. We all had a few core ones that overlapped, and then we talked about the ones that didn't. And looking back at the last 2 years, and we just brought them together in this new order. To reflect that, we don't necessarily need someone who's just strictly a water utility person. We need someone with that leadership background and collaboration. The empathy are key ones that are moving up. And so it was just an excellent discussion that we had, and I'm feeling pretty good, but open to hear what the other board members have to say on our skill set lists tonight.
Thank you, Director Bender. And you know what? On our previous slide, teamwork is what we elevated. I was wondering, Mike or Joe, if you can add a little bit of depth to that, because I think that was an important discussion.
Sure. No one right answer. We had good collaborative conversations about, in particular, team building and no lone wolf. Keeping folks in the loop was very important throughout the chain of command throughout the organization. And making sure that the silos within an organization are not built up, but are broken down. And so that was an important element of getting clarity on this, and just trying to have everything in there, but not everything. You can't put everything on one page, and but just trying to simplify it a little bit. I thought it was good conversation, good collaborative effort to summarize this in a useful format.
Thank you so much, Mike. And now go back to our where we just left off. And I think even the next slide. Okay. Well, actually,
President Finn, if I could just add one thing that I think the board will be interested in. The ad hoc committee felt strongly about eliminating the number of questions, because we had 91 questions, and with the recommended skill sets, we would have about 33 to 40 questions, which will allow a lot more time for discussion, informal discussion.
And that is in the actual interviews.
Yes.
And I was, before we fully open up, if Joe would like to offer any of his insights as well. I do want everybody to have a voice.
Well, there's a whole bunch of stuff.
Thank you, Director.
Right now.
Sorry, Director Aguirre. I meant Joe Horvath on the ad hoc committee.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, President Finn. Yeah, I would echo what Director Bender and what Mike had already said. I would echo and add to that it was a collaborative process, and it was good to add, I think, teamwork, because I think that was something we all felt very strongly about for the skill sets. And there is a lot of overlap, or surprising amount of overlap between the different skill sets. So even though we settled on the 5 or 6 in each category, I think they also, the chosen ones also reflect the other categories in a way to bring them really all together for your consideration. So that's what I would add.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Joe. And now for discussion. We, with the agenda, we asked the board members to, for their homework assignment, was to look at the recommendations that we presented. And is there anything that you would like to add or to change or to discuss? So now I'm going to open it up to the rest of the board. So please share with us your own gap analysis, and if there are things that we are missing, what they might be, and the definitions. And again, I can't see everybody right now, so I can't tell. Maybe I'll start with Director Laliotis, because I can see you. Do you have anything that you would like to?
No, I think I understand the process you guys went through, and it sounds like you guys landed on some conclusions and sort of mixed and matched to bring some a little more brevity to the list, which I'm fine with. 90 questions was quite exhausting, and I think maybe perhaps with fewer questions, we can dig in and have better conversation with candidates moving forward. So that's kind of all I have to add right now. But welcome any other comments.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Director Laliotis. Director Harris, what would we'd love to hear from you.
One thing that I've brought up on a few different occasions is adding a community interview panel to the process. I know it looks like we're going down the same path, and you guys went down this path when you went and hired the first GM, and for reasons that was unanimously decided to let the other general manager go. I'm just concerned that this process is very time-consuming and doesn't really get a lot of the community involved with it. But on the cultural skill sets, looking over this, the interpersonal skills, it asks about intuitive people skills. What kind of intuition is that? On integrity, how do you measure a person that they're honest and trustworthy? Are there background checks going to be done? Are the background checks, are they going to be checking what they put in their resume, their education background, maybe checking on and what previous employers, what do previous employees say about this person? Are they inspiring, or are they looking for somebody just to stay status quo? So with integrity, do they do the right thing? And how do you bridge the gap? With competence, it says, does the candidate possess the core skills needed? And the core skills, what are the core skills, and how do they obtain them? Is it through their education background? Is it through technology? Is it through leadership? What kind of credentials do they have, and what have they earned? And then it says to take the organization to its next level. What is the next level? Is that implementing the strategic plan items? So those are some of the questions I have. And then values, it says, will the candidates support, model, and live by the mission and values of the organization? How does a candidate live by that? Are they adaptable? Can they be flexible? Can they adapt to less oversight from outside people or from board? Are they independent? What kind of guidance do they need from the board? And then in stability, does the candidate satisfy your questions as far as past employment? And do they have future plans and goals in relation to what? In their education, in their wanting to go from a smaller utility like us to a larger utility? It's the biggest things to me are education is super important to me, and their experience, how they have treated their employees and interacted with them, and that type of stuff. So I fear that some of these candidates will be kind of weeded out for the minimum qualifications on the first round, and we'll see what kind of candidates come through to us at the final. But I would actually like to see more of a community involvement in this, so we don't go down the path that we did before and having to let a GM go after 4 months, and everybody is still kind of bewildered at that. So that's my take.
So you didn't have anything to add or changes that you would like to make for what's in front of us for these?
Yeah, I mean, where's education? I had questions in all of these.
That would.
So are you guys trying to put it into a box?
No,
the boxes are fine, but we go about kind of weeding them out, and
the skill sets that we build our questions
and finding the right fit.
And the questions, the interview process is what pulls out the person's character. Now, of course, we will have resumes and cover letters that extensively go into these things that you are talking about there. When we are presented with our binder of the 10, it was pretty exhausting just to read it. There are, like I said, it's the resumes, but it's not just the resumes. It's the questions that Peck and McKinney presents for them, and they give written answers to. So we have a whole lot of information going into the interview. And this is not exactly the same process. When you were discussing the background check, yes, there is a background check, and this time we are going to be even more thorough with it. And also in-person interviews, which we did not have the opportunity to do. And hopefully, if all goes well with our pandemic situation, we will have a meet and greet as well that the broader community will be involved in. So those are very specific changes that address exactly some of the things that you just brought up. So yeah, that's where we are. I'm assuming that you didn't have another skill set that you would recommend that we add to this. In which case, I will move to Director Aguera. Do you have anything that you would like to add?
Not really. I have no skill sets to add. I think that we have a pretty good realm of directions to go with, and I kind of feel that as we if we use these for the interviews and so on, as we progress, I think that we can always, as we go, we think of other things. Maybe we can interject them at that time, because right now I'm overwhelmed right now with what we have. So let's wait and see how we get into this thing, and then we'll go from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Aguera. And I do just want to reiterate that we have the community has been involved in this process more thoroughly than any other hire that I have seen in this town. You know, we have taken a lot of input from the public. We have elevated it and kept it front and center throughout this process. So it has been inclusive. It has been community centric. So anyhow.
I know. I just thought it would be a good idea to take it to the next level and really have the community members interview them. You know, have one panel where the community can get their take on who they think is the right fit for the position. It was very successful at the town.
I was unaware that the town had that there was a community panel that interviewed them. But this is how we are moving forward. I don't know how we would choose members from the community. And like I said, we will have a meet and greet that will allow community members to interact with the candidates before the final decision. Okay. Is this our final slide?
Right here.
Oh, here we go. Okay. In which case, I'm going to recommend that the board accepts the recommendations from the ad hoc committee for the hard and cultural skill sets that will be used in the 2021 general manager search and interview of candidates for the general manager. So these are the skill sets that we will build our interview questions around. And I will wait for a motion.
Did Tony have any comments, or did I just forget that he had?
Tony did.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll. Hold on. Let me see. I'll move that we recommend. I move that we accept the recommendations from the ad hoc committee for the hard and cultural skill sets to be used in the 2021 general manager search and interview of candidates for the general manager.
Thank you.
I'll second the motion, and I think that there's a lot of information that we would have to go through, what we're going through.
Thank you, Director Aguera, for a second. Shauna, could I get
I second it.
roll call vote, please?
Yes, Madam President. It might be a good time to call for public comment.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you for keeping me on the road here. Is there any public comment about this discussion this evening and recommendation?
No, Madam President.
Thank you. Okay, I'll try that again. Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, thank you. Director Aguera?
Yes.
Director Bender?
Yes.
Director Harris?
Sure, yes.
Vice President Laliotis?
Yes.
President Finn?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so that concludes our special business this evening, and we are going to move on to the consent calendar, where we have items, let's see, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Is there any public comment on the consent calendar? I don't see anything in the chat.
No, Madam President.
In which case, directors, does anybody have an item that they would like to pull or have a question about on the consent calendar?
So I do need to recuse myself on item number 9 for a real property interest.
Okay. Do I
So I
pull
can.
and we take a separate vote on that, or is that's a Steve Gross question?
As long as the item is not pulled from the agenda, Director Bender can announce his conflict, recuse himself from that item. The board can then vote on the consent calendar, and the clerk will note his recusal on that item, on item 9.
Okay, very good. In which case, anybody Oh, go ahead, Director Bender. Do you have to officially?
Oh,
You did.
no, I was just, yeah, so, okay, it's official. I'm recusing myself on item 9.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
So moved for the consent calendar?
Second.
Thank you, Director Laliotis. Shauna, could we get a roll call vote, please?
Yes, thank you. Director Aguirre?
Yes.
Director Bender?
Yes, recusing 9 too.
As noted, sir. Director Harris?
Yes.
Vice President Laliotis?
Yes.
President Finn?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And which brings us to action item number 13. Consideration of adoption of AB 2021, the 10-year energy efficiency target. To adopt the Truckee Donner PUD's 10-year energy efficiency target for the period 2022 through 2031 as net energy savings of, 3.079 megawatt hours and net demand savings of 331 kilowatt hours. And who has I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong spot on my iPad, but I am getting there. Oh, I have to get through all the vehicle specifications. I apologize for this lengthy paging. There we go. This is Mr. Salmon presenting for us. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, President Finn, members of the board. This is action item number 13, which is California Assembly Bill 2021 10-year energy efficiency targets. AB 2021 actually starts with Senate Bill 1037, which was in 2005. It requires all publicly owned utilities to establish energy efficiency goals, as well as collect 2.85% of retail sales and from electric bills and invest those in energy efficiency, low-income programs, renewables, and research and development programs. AB 2021, a year later, requires all POUs to establish 10-year targets. First report was in 2007. We update that every 3 years. And reports to the California Energy Commission. That was done in 2007, 2010, and 2013. AB 2027 in 2012 required us to update the targets every 10 years instead of 4. And we last updated our targets in 2017. It's time to do that again. The district's historical energy efficiency performance, we've analyzed this for many years now. It's designed to maximize cost effectiveness. We have a very good track record here at the district in cost savings and effectiveness, exceeding the 2.85% mandate. Our savings in the past has been dominated by energy efficiency lighting and custom projects, particularly on the commercial side, on the custom side. The programs have experienced diminishing returns due to saturation, and particularly with light bulbs. You can only give out so many light bulbs in the community before there's saturation, as well as new building codes and standards. The program has of late experienced some transition, as well as 2020 was impacted by the impacts of COVID. The district is also shifting some of its resources to emerging electrification, as well as greenhouse gas reduction opportunities. So our 10-year energy efficiency targets are due March 31st and reported to the CEC, and it covers the 10-year period 2022 through 2031. The CMUA is involved in this process. On the behalf of POUs, they engaged with a company by the name of GDS Associates, and GDS worked with the various POUs, including the district, to look at historical things as well as forecast information by customer class. It's quite the model, I must say. I was impressed by the detail and the granularity of the model that they put together. So we met with them several times, as well as internally with Joe Horvath and Stephen Poncelet. Both helped quite a bit in helping to work with GDS to establish these targets. So after this process, and so many revisions and many meetings, we did establish for the 10-year target 3,079 MWH in net energy savings, net demand savings of 331 kW, and represents a 0.35% down to 0.1% of megawatts sold, 45% below the target set in 2017. And again, this is through working with consultants, GDS. This is what those targets look like. This first chart here is on the usage side, kWh, net energy, and the blue bars represent historical past energy efficiency savings results. 2021 is in process of being quantified now, and then the targets are in the gray bars. This is the demand side. You see similar trend for both historical energy efficiency as well as the targets established for the next 10 years. Let's see, as far as fiscal impact goes, the GDS study is part of CMUA dues, which was a budgeted item. The cost for energy efficiency programs is in our annual budgets, and there is no direct fiscal impact for this action item. The recommendation tonight is for the board to adopt Truckee-Donner Public Utility District's 10-year energy efficiency targets for the period 2022 through 2031 as net energy savings of 3,079 MWH and net demand savings of 331 kWh. So that's the presentation, and now I'd like to open it up for any questions from the board or others.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Salmon. First, I would like to ask, is there any public comment on this item? I don't see any in the Q&A.
No, Madam President.
Thank you, Shauna. In which case, let's open it up to the board. And again, let's see if I can see everybody here. So maybe by a hand, you can, if you have a question or a comment. There we go. I can see, I think, all of my directors now. Anybody? Bueller? Okay. I, of course, do have some questions and comments. So this is a really kind of dense and confusing issue, especially at this point in time where we are looking to expand our electricity consumption through,
electrification, yes.
Exactly. So I get why we are, like you said, the low-hanging fruit is gone. We've given away a lot of lights. I would love it if we gave away water heaters, but I'm sure that is not a cost-effective conservation effort. And I also understand that we have an electrification study going on now that's going to come back to us with suggestions for sort of a new era of conservation initiatives. So I think that these are achievable goals is good. We have to meet our regulatory requirements. So good. Just going through the comments that I wrote. And just these always really point to the real benefits of belonging to these industry associations. You know, that they have somebody that is doing these surveys for us to help us, you know, sort of wade through. Like you said, there's a lot of variables going on right now that are hard to quantify. So anyhow, I really appreciate you spelling this out as simply as you could for us. And there's nothing that says we can't exceed these efficiency goals as the opportunities and technologies become available, which is what we did the last time around. We exceeded those goals. So thank you.
Conservation remains an important aspect of the district's overall operations and programs for the district, and remains a priority.
Very good. Thank you very much. Okay, in which case I'm open to entertaining a motion.
I'll go ahead and I'll move to adopt the Truckee-Donner Public Utility District's 10-year energy efficiency targets for the period 2022 through 2031 as net energy savings of 3,079 megawatt hours and net demand savings of 331 kilowatts, kWs.
I'll second that motion.
And thank you, Director Bender. Shauna, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Thank you, Director Aguirre.
Comments, did you say, or vote?
Roll call.
If you have a comment, now would be a great time.
I was going to say, if there's a savings on all this, on the energy and demand savings on a kilowatt, there's got to be a savings in money somewhere. So I vote, that's a second, that's not, yes, I vote yes.
That's why Mr. Salmon presented us to us, the money man. Okay, so I guess, shall we continue with our vote?
Thank you, Director Bender.
Yes.
Director Harris.
Yes.
Vice President Laliotis.
Yes.
President Finn.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Although he's not going anywhere because he has back-to-back presentations. I believe we've got a workshop item. Yeah, I'm going to hand it over once again. You can be doing the performance review.
Thank you, President Finn, members of the board. Did my screen update for the next item, the workshop?
Yes.
Okay. So soon after the COVID pandemic started globally, and in particular in the region, we started tracking. It had its effects on the public utility district, and I'm going to present some of that here today. The district's demand since had a small dip in March through April and May of 2020 compared to 2019, and then was up every month thereafter. We attribute this primarily to an increase in occupation of what was historically second homes, as well as an increase in the time spent by primary residents at their homes due to in particular stay-at-home orders. This is visually shown by this chart, the two charts here. The top is electric kWh variances per billing day compared by month for 2020 compared to 2019. And then water is the same thing in gallons per billing day per month for 2020 compared to 2019. And it should be noted that on the electric side, the first quarter is the largest demand quarter of the calendar year, and particularly because of the weather in particular, and the cold weather, if you will. And January and February were flat to 2019, and then fell dramatically in March, down a bit in April and May, and then upticked throughout the rest of the year. This is by quarter here for electricity. And then for the year, the net is 2%. And if you look across these bars, it doesn't really add up, but that's because these months in the summer are smaller volume months for electricity than this first quarter. So this first quarter being flat and down had a bigger impact overall in the overall for the year. But for the year, things were up. On water, we did see a few anomalies. These June, October, and November were influenced a bit by significantly by irrigation, as well as you may recall, the fall of 2020 was a bit on the average, above average in temperatures, as well as very dry. The district understands and fully that the services of electricity and water are a basic need, essential for the safety and comfort of our customers. COVID-19 and the pandemic has impacted the ability for many utility customers across the state, in the United States, state of California, the United States, as well as that district to afford this basic need. In response, the district has temporarily suspended late fees and shutoffs for non-payment. In April of 2020, the board approved an increase in funding to the existing payment assistance programs, specifically targeted at customers impacted by COVID. To date, we've assisted approximately 300 customers. This is through February, early February information. It's now $90,000 and over 300 customers for an average of $300 per customer. The specific COVID relief instituted by the district assists primary residential customers of the district who have demonstrated a qualifying hardship event. Suspension of late fees in 2020, as the pandemic started, the financial impact there was $63,000 decrease in late fees for the district in 2020. And we expect that to continue based on how the pandemic is dragging along, unfortunately. And the net impact for 2021 would be another $85,000 if we did not have late fees for the entire year of 2021. So as the pandemic has lingered, and despite the payment assistance directed to our customers that have qualified for financial hardship due to the COVID, the district's past due amounts have increased from $47,000 overall February 1st last year, 2020, to $354,000 at the February 2021. This chart visually represents that $354,000 is the current past due amount. It is comprised to the right of 30-day bucket, a 60-day bucket, and 90 days or greater in arrears. So the trend, the combined total of the 30, 60, and 90s, which are on the right, is summarized on the left as the total amounts past due. These small bars here are February 1st of 2020, right before the pandemic hit. That's the total past due, $46,000. Most of that was in 30-day, and then a small amount in 60 and 90. This has been the trend since May for the total amount in arrears. This is 30 days trend, the 60-day amount, and then the 90-day. So digging a little deeper, Here at the top is the number of customers as of February 1st, 2021 that had delinquent amounts 30 days. 723 electric, E is for electric, W for water, 495 water. In the 60-day category on the previous page in dollar amounts, these are the number of customers, 313, 205 for water. And then in 90-day, there's 194 customers with 90-day arrearages, 90-day plus, and 133 on water. The average past due, dividing these numbers, the average of these two numbers by the 30, 60, and 90-day totals gives you overall averages of 30-day in arrears of $273, $220 for 60 days, and $804 for 90 days plus. As far as these number of customers and its comparison to our overall number of customers for the district, 1.2% are 90 plus days in arrears versus 0.1% last year, February 1st, 2020. From a financial impact standpoint, the total in arrears of $354,000 represents 1.1% of the billings in those accounts receivables that are past due, which are the billings March through December. The 90 days plus represents 0.4% of the March through December billings. And from a bigger picture perspective, 500,000 represents a little bit over 1.2% of our revenue budget. At the top is just the breakdown of that visual chart that was 2 slides earlier. So specifically on the 90 days plus past due, 194 electric customers is 90,000 of it, and 133 water customers are 42,000 of the total 132,000. So the average, so this is not a blend, the previous average was of 804, I believe, was a blended average. This is specifically between water and electric, is for electric customers, $463, and for water, $313 per customer. And this is just the 90-day plus number of customers divided by the 90 days plus amount that is past due. Digging deeper into the 90-day plus delinquent accounts, the vast majority, almost 90%, is residential in nature. So it's our residential customers that represent the majority of the 90-day plus delinquent balance. Digging deeper, the residential split is 68% of the customers that are 90 days plus are primary customers, and 79% of the dollars. Secondary is 32% of the customers and 21% of the dollars. Overall mix for electric on the right there is about 40%. That number does change from year to year. It might be currently 39% primary, but it's around 40% primary and 60% secondary. When you look at the ledger, the detailed ledger of 90 plus day accounts and their past due amounts, the top 25, and sorted on that dollar amount that's still owed, the top 25 represent 56% of the dollars, but only 16% of the accounts on the electric side. And on the water side, 55% of the dollars, or 23% of the accounts. So there's a handful of accounts that have fairly large balances that represent a large percentage of the dollars. The vast majority of residential accounts with over $1,000 in 90 plus day balances, currently 16, have unusually high electricity demand and usage patterns, not in alignment with typical residential usage. For commercial accounts, the accounts are not eligible for the payment assistance program established by the district. However, we do note that several of these accounts are listed as receiving federal SBA PPE loan funds. The top three over 1,000 in 90-day plus in arrears are restaurants here locally. Pretty much all utilities have paused on the assessment of late fees and shutoffs for non-payment. There are lots of chatter at the federal and state levels regarding and lobbyists trying to establish what's going to happen to utilities. We are not alone. Matter of fact, we're probably on the lower end as far as a percentage basis. Last time I saw some survey information, we were on the lower end as far as the amount of delinquency that is built up at a utility. It's still material nonetheless. So there's no formal regulation yet specifically helping out utilities. Many utilities have observed a decrease in contacts with customers about payment plans and extensions attributed to the customers being informed about protection measures. Currently, we have less than 5 on a formal payment plan. We have sent them letters explaining their options, that the amounts are still due and will become due at some point. Please pay what you can. Please contact us to establish a payment plan. But for the most part, that falls on deaf ears, due primarily due to the lack of the ability to enforce with shutoff. So we have engaged with other utilities in the region and elsewhere, and the JPA is seeking best practices. Some utilities are taking a more proactive approach for the accounts that have large past due amounts. That includes establishing a monetary threshold to trigger a shutoff notice and increase the customer's engagement. Trying to be more proactive with these large account balances before it just continues to build and then potentially becomes a bad problem. Shutoffs have been and remain a last resort option. Fiscal impact, there's a slippery slope of relief. Ultimately, any relief that's provided as far as write-offs impact all ratepayers. And if we don't do anything to address specifically accounts with over $1,000 balances, on electric, we risk approximately 41,000 of the currently 131,000 past due, just a way of quantifying it. And that's roughly that. I believe that's combined water and electric for the approximately 25 customers. It's currently 16, but I'm sure after this most current billing, it might escalate up to about 25. So things to, in summary, for consideration, this is a workshop, so we'll certainly have some robust discussion, I know, but things for consideration are to consider reinstating shutoffs for electric customers with $1,000 balance over 90 days, approximately 25 accounts. This will motivate these particular customers to pay off the balance or seek assistance and enter into a formal payment plan with the district, which is already allowed in district code up to 24 months. And then the district views connections as a last resort and will continue to work with all customers struggling to pay their bills to understand their needs and identify resources to help them become current. We also need to renew our COVID-19 customer relief program. We have customers that are in financial need. They've proven financial hardship due to unemployment, and while they may be receiving some federal and or state assistance, they are still qualifying for financial relief. And it was not that long ago that we gave them a 2-month bill credit. And we recommend that we allow that to happen again this year in 2021 if they still qualify. So I know I went over quite a bit of information. I'll turn this back over to President Finn to continue the workshop.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Salmon. You certainly can present numbers in many, many different lights. I think I would love, I know workshops, we don't usually take public comment. So there, Steve Gross is shaking his head. So no, this is purely a board discussion. So it's not a board discussion. Unmute yourself, Mr. Gross.
Thank you. I just unmuted myself. No, we would take public comment on any item and every item on the agenda.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
I think this is a sticky wicket, and if the public had anything to contribute, I would really like to hear it, because I think that solutions are going to be thin on the ground. Is there any public comment?
No, Madam President.
No, rats. Thank you, Shauna. When I want it, it's not there. So I'm going to open it up to the board. Jeff, Director Bender, I saw that you were unmuted.
I unmuted, and I just, I guess, I have a lot of empathy for those who are truly in need. And what is probably unfortunate, we have some folks who are truly taking advantage. Some really need it. And I'm in favor of renewing the PAC, the program we have for helping those who truly need it. Those who don't, that's where I get a little angry. And they're just taking advantage of a situation when they're fully capable. I always love the Spock quote from Star Trek: "The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one." So, it gets, I'm fully happy helping out those in need. But not for those who take advantage. And that kind of comes up to a point. I got a phone call from a retired police officer from the town of Truckee last year, specifically asking about illegal marijuana grows within the town of Truckee. And so this is kind of a Steve Gross question. There's 16 accounts that have weird electrical use activity. Are we allowed as a district to share that with the police department, with the town of Truckee?
So that's a very good question. We could share that, I believe, with a proper request from the police department, from the town. Under the Public Records Act, utility usage, customer data information is exempt from disclosure as a public record. There are several exemptions to that particular rule, and I believe that if there is a proper request from another governmental entity, that we could share that information. And probably while the conversation progresses, I will double check that code section.
Okay. Thanks, Steve. And then Mike, is there a trend regarding, the same customers just not paying? And then the follow-up on top of that, are those folks signed up for the program that we have?
Well, first I would say the district, I feel like, has done a good job of communicating to all customers the COVID relief options and programs, both in bill inserts and bill comments, as well as on our website. Those that are financially impacted by COVID, I believe, have an understanding of the relief efforts provided and have partaken in that. Then there's this gap section of folks that just realize that there's no consequences for non-payment. And a handful of those accounts represent a large portion of the dollar amount.
Mm-hmm. And they're not signed up for the COVID relief plan.
Not currently, nor have they engaged in a payment plan that has been communicated in writing several times.
Okay. And then, I'm just thinking out loud, just how do we just make sure, if we do implement the shut off program again, I just, want to make absolute sure that,
Sure.
we're not hurting those who need it, right? And just if those who need it, it's like it's no fault of their own. The governor shut everything down. And
well, it wouldn't be just a reminder. It would not. It's not a. We're not talking about thousands of customers. We're not talking about an automated system that goes through on April 1st and shuts the people off. These are targeted per district code specific communications with specific timelines. Please engage us. We want to understand it's tailored banking services, tailored customer services by customer to understand their and explain their options and engage with them directly to establish a payment plan, make a down payment. Up to 24 months of payment plan is very, very accommodating. And what the problem is, these customers are not engaging at all with us because they know we have no recourse. And trust me, we're not the only district talking about this. This is in CPUC commentaries. This is from briefings provided by PG&E, Southern Cal Edison, other utilities, SMUD. They're all experiencing the same problem. And a carte blanche. No shutoffs for all customers opens us up a bit to being taken advantage of. And if we consider and think about the opportunity to perhaps develop a more targeted policy that is targeted at large dollar balances, and it's not saying shut off, it's saying, hey, we're going to shut you off if you don't engage with us, start making payments, establish a payment plan and adhere to it. And so we work with each individual customer based on their needs. Maybe there's one of them that just didn't know about the COVID assistance program. Perhaps it's just they're ignoring us. With the threat of shutoff, it shifts the balance to engagement, which is what we need.
Got it. Thank you. I'm done for now.
Mike,
Director Bender?
Yes.
Okay, we sent out the bills. Now, do these customers that don't pay, do they call us in or they just don't pay? Well, how do they communicate with us on that?
The vast majority do not communicate with us, Director.
They don't communicate?
Correct.
They just don't send their money in?
Correct.
Okay, now how are we gonna, I think you asked for a 2-month extension on our program. Is that what I saw there?
It's a renewal of the 2 months bill credit for those customers that need COVID financial relief and can show continued financial hardship due to the pandemic. They would be eligible for up to another 2 months of bill credit.
Okay.
We're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of the start of the pandemic. And so those customers that received 2 bills, were unemployed or their business was shut down, and so their income was down, and they received 2 months bill credit. They may still be in that same financial hardship. And so we'd like to consider approval by the board to open that up again, as opposed to in the past, it was, every 2 years kind of thing.
Okay, now we'll extend the program. I would I wouldn't care for that. I just go for it. And only as we go, how are we going to find out if they truly need this, or if they don't, they're just taking advantage of it? How do we find that out?
Director, we work with an agency that helps us with that and works with the customer to establish documentation of financial hardship. And so there's a good asset test, and I feel confident that we're checking the right boxes to ensure compliance with financial hardship.
Well, okay, good. Because I was wondering if we continue, and also if we have new customers that have a hardship and so on, if we scrutinize them a little bit more and find out more information on them to make sure that they do need the assistance.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, okay, so we would go further into their investigation then.
We will continue to do that.
Okay.
If I might add real quick, this kind of reiterate, this is a workshop, so no action out of this evening, looking for guidance and direction. One of the things for consideration is prior to the pandemic, on the water utility side, there was already a provision in the state of California that requires a utility to engage with a customer and ensure there isn't a financial hardship, a qualifying financial hardship, before we terminate service for non-payment. During the pandemic, it is across the board for residential water use, we can't terminate service for non-payment. On the electric side, we could incorporate something similar to what was in place prior to the pandemic on the water side, where staff would continue to engage with customers, ensure there isn't a qualifying financial hardship through that engagement, but our customers understanding that at the, our last resort is communication of potential shutoffs on the electric utility side. This would engage that same similar conversation that we had on the water side prior to the pandemic. It's not, through our best management or best practices discussions with some of our sister utilities, simply the engagement, similar to what I just outlined, effectively reduced the 90-day delinquencies without a single implementation of shutoffs. So just the engagement there can be an effective measure. It's what we're concerned about as a utility here is the across the board, removal of potential shutoffs removes that engagement and puts our customers kind of at risk here with expecting some form of relief or write-off at the end of the pandemic, and that's a risky proposition there. So some of the higher dollar value delinquencies, we can have those discussions, implement some payment plans. If there is a qualifying financial situation, the district could engage and work with that customer.
Thank you, Brian.
Steve, did you want to respond?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to follow up on your question about our ability to provide utility usage data to law enforcement. We can, upon a court order request from law enforcement with respect to a pending investigation. And we could also provide such data to a governmental entity or governmental official if it's necessary for that agency to discharge its official duties. So short answer is yes, we can provide it, but we should only do so upon a request. Okay?
Got it. Thank you, Steve.
Excellent.
So, yeah, thanks, Krista. So I guess a couple questions. Maybe you, Mike and Brian, can give us an quick overview of what specific moratoriums are in place that are affecting us on water and electric shutoffs, and what the effective timeline is for those currently.
Brian,
With respect to, we'll kind of separate these out into water and power. With respect to water, under the current requirements of the state of California, under the pandemic situation, water has been established as a necessity of health, safety, and life. And so currently, utilities are not permitted to turn off residential customers or non-payment. We are able to accrue utility billing over time. We're allowed to accrue late fees if we so wish. In terms of the electric utility side, there are two different kind of regulating bodies out there. Actually, it's on both sides, but on electric, the California Public Utility Commission versus our publicly owned utilities have a couple different approaches at this. Our district has chosen to include the electric utility under the same guide, so to speak, as the water utility, where we've put a hold, a suspension of service terminations due to non-payment for customers, and we're continuing to accrue outstanding, billing amounts. As far as how long this will last in the state of California, I would ask Steve Gross to add a little bit of comment to it, but it was initially implemented under the executive order during the original outbreak of the pandemic, and it has been put in place, I believe, under a renewing executive order cycle. I'd ask Steve Gross to add any comment to that.
Sure, I'll provide my legal, non-legal observation, which is that the issue's been, the can's been kicked down the road. Relief has been provided in a number of areas, utilities, rent, and there's no apparent or front-running solution to address these issues in the long term from the perspective of utility service providers like the district or landlords, et cetera. And so there just seems to be a growing problem that's going to come to head here, and I don't have a good vision or forecast of how or when that's going to come to an end. Whether or not consumers will get the types of reliefs that I think they're hoping for, that Mike alluded to, or whether the legislature and will come up with funds to support that, or whether there'll be an effort to put some of that burden on the utility providers themselves, which in effect socializes the cost to all of our ratepayers. So I just don't have a real good answer, but for right now, the status quo remains, and we have to continue to abide by these orders. I hope that was somewhat responsive, Brian.
Yeah, thank you.
No, I appreciate that. So, I mean, but this doesn't preclude us from establishing our process, reaching out to customers, giving them the options, and setting the expectation that if we don't come to a resolution when time comes, we will shut off your service. I don't know if that's been communicated in that respect. While we can't just go out and shut it off now, at some point we will be able to. And I think might be an important message to send, that when time comes, we will pursue those avenues. In the meantime, here's what you can do to prevent it. So I would think that, that's probably a reasonable course of action is to, which I think we already have, but, to be able to get to a point where they realize what their options are, where, what the ultimate remedy would be based of a shut off at some point down the line. And that, at this point, we're not considering any specific relief. And put ourselves in a position to, when things start to break loose, we have provided ample opportunities for these customers to communicate and go down the road of resolution versus a complete, ignore of our efforts, but clearly communicating, what we're trying to do and what the end result might be. So, I don't think any of these moratoriums prevent us from a threat and or getting all of these accounts to a point where we've communicated exhaustively to where, what their options are and what the end result could be. So,
Director Laliotis, just to be clear, we have been communicating to past due customers and in as non-threatening a way as possible to explain their options, and that it does not threaten shut off of service currently. It merely says, it does say that this bill will ultimately come due for you. So you really should start paying as much as possible now. And if you have financial hardship, please talk to us. Please engage with us. We have programs. We can establish payment relief, payment plans, etc. And crickets.
No, yeah, I get it. I guess my point is at some point maybe we can take it to the next level and start interjecting the idea of shutoffs, so that people, I agree with Council Gross that I just think people have a mindset right now that that's not just for utility bills, it's for rent and all these things, and we're headed for a big problem when these customer relief moratoriums begin to relax. So it's unfortunate that we're put in this situation. I get it. I appreciate all of our customer service staff and the finance and accounting staff, doing everything they're doing to try and get these people to talk. I understand there's people who just aren't going to communicate. But I support, cranking up the level of communication and consequence to the customers.
Thank you. Director Harris.
Hi, Mike, thank you so much for this presentation. I'm glad to hear that you are working with other agencies, because I know obviously a lot of other utilities as well as insurance companies and people who are renting places are also feeling our pain. So it's not unique to just us. I was curious whether the makeup of the residential ones, is it 100% primary owners where they're here full time, or is it a mix of secondary owners and is it renters? Is it the homeowners? I was curious about that. Are any of these people, renting now with Airbnb or something?
If I'm not mistaken, those would be classified as residential accounts, whether they're primary or secondary. It would depend on the specific property. I do on this slide here, 68 on the 90 days, 90% is residential, and about 70% of the residential is primary account customers.
I've missed all that with reading it. Okay, thanks. So that may be a direction to take is, the secondary homeowners. I don't know if they would be more, I don't want to say welcoming, but maybe appreciate the opportunity to shut it off, to kind of, be able to help kind of stop the services until they get caught up. But, I don't know. That's
right.
Just kind of discussions.
The keynote.
And then the other thing is, I think as a board, we could just do our due diligence in trying to keep spending to the essentials, so the balances don't keep going up significantly. COVID is really tough, and when hearing that the majority of the commercial customers are the restaurants, that's not a huge surprise to any of us. And I expect that the residential, that they're not only not paying their electric and water, but they're probably not paying their insurance and their gas and rent, just like I said before. And if anybody had, I'm glad to hear that, like I said, we're working with other agencies, and it's something we'll just have to keep thinking about in trying to meet people in providing that service, in their opportunity to set up some type of plan to relieve, give them relief.
Thank you, Director Harris.
Thanks.
I would be remiss if I didn't bring up a keynote from this presentation, is that your top 25 delinquent accounts represent 56% of the dollars. And so that's a very small number of accounts that are accumulating a large amount of debt. And, targeting balances over $1,000 hits that top 25 for the most, and a few more would of that, but that it would go a long way toward addressing it. So that's an area that I would like to keynote.
And one of the things, just to expand on what Mike just said, is the district or staff is very, careful not to kind of implement judgment and as to the use of the utility, but really working out there, getting communication with, resolving the outstanding delinquency. So, kind of the underlying message here is the challenge is reconciling these large debts with kind of a disengagement due to the fact that customers know that they can't have their services terminated at the moment.
Oof. Yeah, this is it's a problem. I think we're all in good alignment. None of us want to see people who are truly, suffering, don't have the money, or out of a job. None of us want to see those people, further penalized for things that aren't their fault. But we all also have no tolerance for the people who are simply skating by because they know that the turnoffs are not happening right now. And I do know that's happening because I have heard people say it. So I know it is going on. People are taking advantage of the situation. I have a few specific questions that you may not have the answers to off the top of your heads. How much money is left in the fund that we created, the payment relief plan that we shifted over last April? Like, I saw how much has been spent. It's like $83,000. I believe that we funded it to maybe $250,000.
The fund was increased to, I believe, a total of $375,000. The kind of the appropriations there, or the use of the funds, I don't believe include some of the administrative cost in the program. So staff can bring back an actual real number of what's the remaining balance is.
Yeah, I think that would be kind of helpful to know going forward. And so it's not legal at this point in time to shut anybody off. We are pretty sure it will become legal, hopefully by summer, when vaccinations arrive and economies reopen more fully. I don't think I have a problem with getting out a bigger stick at this moment, like as Tony sort of suggested. Yes, Kim.
I got a question. So what are the avenues that customers are allowed to, or are able to contact the district? like, can they contact them after hours? Are you emailing them? Are you,
Set up a fax machine. I'm kidding. Yeah. So, yeah, the avenues are clear on our should be clear on our website. And the comment, as well as our contact information on our monthly bills that go out. It's been promoted in targeted emails to our database.
Well, I mean, like, I know as a person who holds a full-time job, and you get home at night and you go to call the office and the office isn't available. Are there, are there after hours avenues? Like when they call in, I believe we have a call service.
We do. We have a call service. They would take a message. We would get back to them the next business day.
And we can, I mean, do we have staff that's able to call them back at night after 6 o'clock, or?
We do not. Again, the majority are not calling about the fact they're just not paying. And that's typical of what other utilities are saying as well. The customers are not engaging because they know there's nothing we can do. As far as I know, Director Finn, it is legal for us to disconnect service. It is illegal for IOUs, so but not POUs to disconnect service. We are pausing that for now. The item for consideration is to not pause that power, that ability for accounts over $1,000 on electric, as kind of a temporary measure to address the top 25 accounts that represent 56% of your dollars.
Okay, because I think that might spur some much more quicker response if they knew that we are not. It was our action that suspended these shutoffs. It wasn't legislative action or.
That's my understanding. Stephen, if you want to weigh in, if you're still on the call, on the Zoom, that's my understanding from a regulatory standpoint.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. On the water side, it's different, and you are prohibited from shutting off as General Manager Wright indicated. On the electric side, it's discretionary.
Okay. It being March, I'm really not a fan of turning off anybody's power. But again, if what this is coming down to is the size of the stick, because we simply can't get people's attention, or they really are taking advantage, we might want to start bringing out some bigger sticks. On to the, I have a few other sort of scatter shot here. The questions don't necessarily lead one to the other. It's just as I was making notes, as I was listening and reading originally. For the restaurants, I recall when I opened a restaurant here in town, you have to pay your first and last month's deposit. And if you are current with all your bills for 2 years, you get that back. Do we know if any of our restaurants are newish restaurants that we have those deposits in hand? Because that would defray ultimately, we keep them, these costs. Because I remember we took over the space that had Kentucky Fried Chicken, and we had to pay like $7,000 to get hooked up because they used so much electricity to fry all that chicken. It was a shocker. But I got it back, 2 years later, which was awesome. It was a great little, bump at that point in time that I really appreciated. But, just those are policies that we already have in place. And hopefully, I don't know how many well, then again, we do have some restaurants that have been not open for 2 years that are in the middle of this. So just something to keep in mind, which brings me to like a guesstimate of how much of this is actually recoverable. Or how much are we going to write off? Do we have anything to base that sort of guess on? This is really new territory, I'm assuming, but we certainly want to. How many people are really legitimately out of business?
So, Director Finn, while I'm all for transparency, I'm not sure I would want to just throw out a figure to the general public, general consumer. But at this point, there is no, the amount of write-off historically over the last few years has been below $5,000 a year
Okay.
in total. There is absolutely no plans currently to write off any of the current past due amounts from our customers. We are open to the services have been provided, and we are plan to collect on that. We're pausing on shutoffs at least for the majority of our customers currently. And we are open to payment plans from anywhere from 12 to 24 months or up to 24 months. The realities of a certain amount of this becoming bad debt beyond this typical average amount each year is high. And every utility is wrestling with that. I have made an estimate for year-end 2020 financial statements that will be reviewed by the auditors, and I'll be discussing with the auditors. And then when I do the audit presentation in May, I will brief the board on what that looks like.
Okay, so our biggest hurdles are really identifying the customers, as we have all agreed, that are just slackers and are avoiding payment while they can, to the ones that are really hurting and truly can't afford it. I agree, we've been robust in our outreach with our COVID relief plan. If we, there's...
I've got one more question. Is the front...
Can you hold it for a moment while I finish my...
Sorry.
Thank you. So my train of thought, they get interrupted. That we need to figure out, to parse through the customers, like I said, that are truly in need, and the customers that are taking advantage of the situation. Take Mr. Wright's thoughts on what we do with the water over to the electric side, and to help with that collection process. Get a bigger stick to make sure that people realize we will be turning off their connections if that's what it's going to take. And maybe we can be kind of open on that and say, we're not necessarily going to give you forewarning. This is your forewarning. When it comes to the point where we make that decision, it's going to go off. You've been told, you've been given notice, you've been given, whatever. So it could be at any time. So you might want to get into your payment plan at the soonest possible option. I don't know if that's legal. I don't know if my mafia blood's coming out. And then again, on the more gentle side of things, my experience with debt is it can be a very paralyzing situation where you become just mentally and emotionally unable to take action. And that's a really terrible place to be. And we don't, we want to protect those people. And I think, being as gentle as possible with, collect whatever we can, if it's $5 or $10 a month, but how do we break through the barrier of people's emotional ability to deal with the debt that they're in? So that's a psychological problem that I don't know that we have the tools, but somebody does. And I think we're going to need to bring to bear all of these approaches, the carrots, the sticks, the reaching out, the more personal, targeted. We're looking at it. The top 25 delinquent accounts these are the people that we really need to know more about. We need to know more about them, and whatever, if it takes a big stick or if it takes, a good friend, we're going to have to somehow figure out what that is and present it to these people. So this is obviously an ongoing discussion, and I will now turn it back over to Director Harris.
Thank you. And I really appreciate your comments, Krista. I apologize for getting your train of thought off, but I really do appreciate that your thought process of everything. The other thing is our front office open? I think I drive by all the time and it still has that barrier there. Do we have regular office hours that people can come in and pay with cash? Or do they have to use the deposit, the cash deposit?
They have to use the drop box. Our lobby is not currently open. Like the majority of utilities that we've checked, I do know there are some other agencies that are open, but as far as utilities go, the majority still remain closed to the public.
Okay, well, and as COVID, as we kind of hopefully move into the less purple tier, maybe consider holding office hours that people can come in and speak with people.
Absolutely. Good point.
Well, I don't know if we came up with any. I hope provided staff with some guidance.
Yeah, if I might ask that, again, it's a workshop item for discussion. If it pleases the board, we could come back with an action item at a later date with some recommendations. What I'm hearing from the board this evening is for the short term, until that action item is reviewed and either approved or asked for additional research on this item, staff will continue to engage, reach out, communicate. We will bring back an item that kind of revisits the board's decisions back in 2020, update with the current situation we have over the next 30 days or so, and then present some options that the board might wish to approve moving forward.
I think that sounds accurate. I think we do have to keep moving on this. It's not going to go away. We need to, we may be taking some hard steps, but we're not doing ourselves any favors by not tackling it. So thank you. Thank you, Brian.
One more thing, Brian, also maybe just one last thing is I'm curious, and I think maybe, if through these coming months we can drill down to a little bit better understanding of the types of accounts, more specifically renters versus owners who are in this position, to establish the demographics and the, of where this non-payment is coming from.
Okay.
Well, that was fun. I think we're going to move on to more routine business. Item number 15.
Thanks, Mike.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Mike. That was a lot of information that you gave to us in a very clear way. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And for all the board's input. Thank you for looking at this from all the angles that we can think of. Obviously, I'm ready. Ready for dinner. On to routine business. Number 15, approval of the February 3rd, 2021 and the February 22nd, 2021 minutes.
I've got a comment about the February 3rd, 2021 minutes. You're muted, but I think you said to go ahead. Okay. On the February 3rd minutes, action item number 14, we had talked about doing just action minutes. There's a comment that's inserted in here that I was actually surprised to see, but what it says is District Council Gross verified with Director Harris, and Director Harris affirmed the board reviewed and approved the 2020 wage scales at the March 18th, 2020 meeting. I never said that they reviewed it because I actually pointed out that the wage scales were not attached to the agenda item at that meeting. So, and I rewatched it, and actually, Steve, I don't know if he would remember, but we did talk about the approval of it, but I wanted to make it clear that the wage scales were not attached to that agenda item. So either take the whole statement out or change it to where delete reviewed and put in about the wage scales not being attached to the agenda.
My recollection of the conversation at the meeting was that you raised the issue, and I had asked whether or not there was any doubt in your mind that the wage scales had in fact been approved. And you had indicated that they had been, that there was no doubt in your mind. So I guess if you wanted to have, there was discussion that the board had reviewed those wage scales at numerous times during other meetings.
You could,
but you're right. If you want to remove the word reviewed from that statement so that it's more accurate with respect to the March 18 meeting, I can certainly understand that. And that's the board's prerogative, not mine, just offering my perspective.
okay, thanks. But yeah, I just want to reflect that the wage scales were not attached to that agenda item.
I guess I don't have an opinion on the matter.
Yeah, I guess I'll make a motion with that adjustment that I just discussed about taking out the word reviewed and then pointing out that Director Harris pointed out that the wage scales were not attached to the agenda item at that meeting. And then I'll approve the rest of the minutes.
Okay. Is that the...
So, President, I need some clear direction for how to staff to proceed.
That's what I'm still looking at I can't find, I'm not sure where I'm looking for that. The action item number 14.
It's in the February 13th, 2021 minutes, and it's action item number 14.
Okay, so it's the February 3rd. Consideration for approval of the 2021 wage scale. I called for public comment. We moved. It was seconded. You abstained.
Correct. And then it's that next paragraph.
District Council Gross verified with Director Harris, and Director Harris affirmed that the board reviewed and approved the 2020 wage scales at the March 18th, 2020 meeting. And that is correct also to my memory. The wage scale was matched, but I don't think that statement is a false statement.
It's not the full statement is what is happening, is that I actually made the observation that the wage scales were not attached to the agenda item.
Okay, so you would like that sentence added?
Added, and then also to delete reviewed and approved, because, yeah, I would like the word reviewed to be taken out.
The board did review and approve the 2020 wage scales at the March 18th, 2020 meeting. But I think we're having a difference
in my eyes. They were not reviewed. The wage scales were not in the agenda package to review. It sounds like they were reviewed at previous meetings.
Reviewed at previous meetings, and that's exactly how I'm reading that statement. You just nailed it. That's what.
If I may suggest something,
sure.
That conversation between District Council Gross and Director Harris, we could put that in verbatim.
Okay, but I want the sentence to be completed about the wage scales not being attached to the agenda item.
We'll have that put in verbatim for that piece of that, just that conversation piece.
Thank you.
That works for the board. It's your pleasure.
So that's fine with me. I think we're simply reading that last statement differently. Like you're reading it as we're talking about that meeting that we were discussing it where the wage scale wasn't attached, and I'm reading it as we approved the 2020 wage scales at the March 18th, 2020 meeting, which did in fact happen.
Correct. Yes, and I understand that did happen, but what my observation was that the wage scales were not attached to the agenda item.
We'll include that part of the conversation, but we won't delete that we reviewed and approved them at the March 18th meeting. Okay, is that clear to Shauna and Ryan?
Clear direction on this. I would ask that this being kind of this thought process be included when we have consideration in the future for more detailed minutes. This is the type of detail that we'll have to have review and at length when we add more and more detail to minutes. So there's kind of the offsetting benefits of action versus detailed, just for board's consideration and staff time.
I was actually surprised to see that statement added in there.
Well, there you go. It's never going to be exactly what everybody wants to see or not see. And I think that's
Well, and this is where the hybrid comes in between action versus
whatever given director. So this is where I'm erring on the side of let's just keep it clean. Okay, so we have a motion to approve the minutes with that change. I am happy to entertain a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Director Lavridis. Shauna, could we get a roll call vote, please?
Absolutely. Director Aguirre?
Yes.
Director Bender?
Yes.
Director Harris?
yes.
Vice President Liliotis?
Yes.
President Finn?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And on to item number 16, approval of the treasurer's report for March 2021, which has two sections, A and B, approval of the report of fund balances for the month ended December 31st, 2020, and also approval of disbursements for the month ended January 31st, 2020. Holy smokes.
So moved regarding item 16A.
I'll second.
Director Aguirre?
What's that?
Approve the fund balances on the treasurer's report?
You mean we're at the warrants? Okay, I'll move them.
Thank you.
Director Bender?
Yes.
Director Harris?
Yes.
Yes.
Vice President Liliotis?
Yes.
President Finn?
Yes.
Thank you.
And I believe we also get to pay the bills. Director Aguirre, would you like to move that we pay the bills?
What was that? I barely hear the thing.
As my computer might not be behaving. Would you like to move that we pay the bills this month?
Yes, I will. Pay the bills.
Thank you.
I'll second. That was Jeff seconding.
Shauna, could we get a roll call vote, please?
Director Aguirre?
Yes.
Director Bender?
Yes.
Director Harris?
Yes.
Vice President Liliotis?
Yes.
President Finn?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, and since we have no closed session this evening, I believe that we can adjourn this meeting of the Chucky Donner Public Utility District. Thank you all for your time and participation, and have a lovely evening. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks, you too. Thanks to all the
Good night.
staff.